Applying to college can be really stressful. So when the Department of Education announced a new FAFSA for student aid, many prospective college students were hopeful that the process could become a little bit easier. Not so much. The rollout of the new form was marred by technical delays that prevented students from accessing them. Now millions of students have to decide where to go to college without knowing how much it could cost. For more, we're going to bring in Bill Townsend, College Rover founder and CEO. Bill, thank you for being here. And just to take a step back, this is the free application for federal student aid. That form was rolled out, had a lot of issues. Now all these students have to decide where to go to college without knowing how they're going to afford it. And this is really heartbreaking to me, because when I got into college, I wasn't even excited until I got my FAFSA information back and knew I could afford it. What is the impact that this could be for the millions of students out there who don't know if they're going to be able to afford to go to the college they got into?
So, Maddie, first, thanks for having me on. This impact is actually devastating. About 80% of high school seniors who then apply to college and don't go that first year, especially first generation and low income families, end up never going to college. So if you look at this, the estimate is about 16% of the freshman class for next year is adversely affected by the FAFSA rollout. If 80% of that 600,000 number don't go to school, the effects are tremendous. If you think about it this way, 500,000, 400,000 kids never go to college. They never maximize their earning potential. And we have a workforce issue, and we have a demographic decline coming 2028, where because of the credit crisis in 2010, we're already going to have less students going to college. And the ramifications of this are for individuals, but also if you look at Social Security, not having enough workers, trained workers and skilled workers, affects really the entire society.
Bill, what you just said is so important, so let's pause on that. What do you think is the single biggest economic impact that we could see just from this FAFSA issue alone?
Okay, so I've tried to do some research in looking at specifically of undocumented families. So one of the issues is FAFSA used to be based on your parents' income. Now it's based on income and wealth, trying to factor generational wealth in. But the new version, unfortunately, you have to have Social Security numbers for both of your parents. So let's say one of your parents is undocumented. You cannot apply for FAFSA right now. So this is an absolute disaster for U.S. citizens, students who were born here, U.S. citizens, because of your parents' documentation. You can't apply for FAFSA, which means a lot of those kids are never going to go to college, especially if you're low income. The thought of taking a gap year, doesn't affect. I mean, you have to go to work. You have to support yourself.
Yeah.
And so the effect is tremendous. And in some ways, I wonder if it was deliberate.
What do you mean by that?
Well, somebody made a conscious decision to change the form to require Social Security numbers from both parents. My question is why? So when Lamar Alexander stood up in the Senate a number of years ago with the FAFSA form and said, we need to simplify this, this was going to be his legacy, who made this decision to suddenly exclude families with a parent who's undocumented? I mean, Richard Cordray is not re-upping his term on the FSA, Financial Student Aid group that he's been running, which is another issue, because you need to fix a system that's broken. You have a new leader coming in, and who knows what their objectives are. It's become very political on both sides of the aisle, and something that should never have happened.
Well, college campuses enjoy touting the idea of a diverse set of students, both economically, ethnically as well, really across the board. Can colleges do anything to come in here and be helpful?
Well, it's interesting. So I was actually talking to the University of Memphis, and they've got 40% of their students get Pell Grants. That's actually going to go up. They're projecting that could be close to 50%. And Pell Grants are part of what FAFSA is determining. So they started 4 months ago having seminars for local residents, Shelby County and then adjoining counties, to try and make up for the fact that this was a debacle. Andrew Lynn, their head of financial aid, this morning confirmed that they think they're going to be able to close the gap. Smaller schools, though, let's say Rhodes College, and they've got a much lower percentage, 15% of the students ever getting a Pell Grant. But still, if you look at this, the freshman class typically there is about 450. If they lose 10 students, that directly impacts, their tuition, even if it's just partially paid.
Last question for you, Bill, in our final minute together. This comes after a lot of volatility on college campuses, and it makes me wonder how young people, how teenagers might be thinking about the ROI of a college education. What would you say to those young folks who might be listening?
It's very interesting. So keep in mind the FAFSA debacle also affects trade schools. Okay, so if you want to go to cosmetology school or become a phlebotomist, you're getting a Pell Grant for that. So it affects really the entire chain here. I think that if you look at the survey, students are very disillusioned with Congress. They're disillusioned with the political system. They're disillusioned with the results. I think this will continue to drive them out of the system. If you look at college earnings for college graduates, the better schools you go, the better the school you go to, the higher your income is. So I think that students are going to have to really look at that, especially for some of the for-profit schools, which in many cases are great schools, but in some cases have proven to not be very good for individuals or society.
Yeah, it's just tough. The stakes are high and the barriers to entry are increasingly difficult, as we're talking about here. Bill, thank you for joining us. That was Bill Townsend.
Thank you, Natty. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bill Townsend, College Rover founder and CEO here.